Marcus Chen stood in the empty boardroom, watching the city lights flicker below. Another 16-hour day, another success nobody celebrated with him. The silence pressed against his ears like cotton, thick, suffocating, complete. His company was worth billions, the kind of number that made headlines and turned strangers into admirers, but his penthouse apartment echoed with a loneliness that no amount of money could fill. At 42, he'd built an empire and lost everything that mattered. His wife had left 3 years ago, tired of being married to a ghost who chose conference calls over conversations, and his daughter barely answered his calls anymore, her texts growing shorter and colder with each passing month. He loosened his tie, the silk feeling like a noose after hours of back-to-back meetings, and headed to his usual restaurant. Le Bernardin, the kind of place where reservations took months and a single meal cost what most people earned in a week. The kind of place where he always ate alone, surrounded by couples and families, drowning in their laughter while he studied financial reports between courses. The maître d' knew him by name but had stopped asking if anyone would be joining him. But as he approached the entrance, something made him stop. Movement in the corner of his vision, a flash of color that didn't belong against the gray December evening. He turned his head and noticed them, a family huddled near the back alley, trying to make themselves small against the restaurant's brick wall. A woman in a threadbare coat, once blue but faded to something between gray and despair, held 2 children close against the cold. Their breath formed small clouds in the freezing air, tiny ghosts that disappeared as quickly as they formed. The smallest child, maybe 5 years old with tangled dark hair and a coat 3 sizes too big, was crying softly, her thin shoulders shaking. The mother was trying to share a single sandwich among them, tearing the bread into careful portions, making sure her children got the larger pieces. Something twisted in Marcus's chest, sharp and unexpected. It felt like remembering something he'd forgotten, like waking from a dream where you'd lost something precious and couldn't remember what it was. He'd walked past homeless people 1,000 times. This was New York, after all, where human suffering became wallpaper you learned not to see. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the way the mother counted out the sandwich pieces with such deliberate care. Maybe it was how the older boy, skinny and serious in a jacket held together with safety pins, kept scanning the street like he was standing guard. Maybe it was just that Marcus was tired of being numb. He walked past the restaurant entrance, his feet making the decision before his mind caught up, and approached them instead. The woman's eyes widened with fear, and she instinctively pulled her children closer. Her hands trembled. "We are not causing trouble, sir," she said quickly, her voice thin and desperate. "We'll move along. We were just resting for a minute. Please don't call the police. Please. My kids, they're good kids, they didn't do anything wrong." The fear in her voice hit Marcus like a physical blow. When had he become the kind of man who inspired terror in vulnerable people? When had his expensive suit and leather shoes transformed into a uniform of threat? "I'm not calling anyone," Marcus said quietly, trying to make his voice soft, unthreatening. "Have you eaten today? A real meal, I mean." The woman's silence was his answer. She looked at him with suspicion mixed with a desperate hope that broke his heart. Her children stared with the enormous eyes of kids who'd learned too young that the world wasn't safe. Marcus gestured toward the restaurant behind him, toward the warm golden lights spilling onto the sidewalk. "Come with me. Please. I'd like to buy you dinner." The woman blinked, confused. "Sir, we can't, a place like that won't." She trailed off, looking down at her stained coat, her children's worn shoes. "They will if you're with me," Marcus said. "I eat there every Tuesday. They know me. Please. It's cold out here, and those kids need hot food." When she still hesitated, he added softly, "I have a daughter about your son's age. If she were hungry and cold, I'd hope someone would help her." Something in the woman's face shifted. She nodded slowly, gathering her children close. "Just for the kids," she whispered. "I'm not hungry." Marcus recognized the lie, the same one his own mother had told when he was young and money was tight, before his tech innovations had turned poverty into a distant memory. "For all of you," he said firmly. Inside, the hostess's practiced smile faltered when she saw Marcus's companions. Her eyes traveled from the woman's threadbare coat to the children's dirty faces, and her expression flickered with distaste. Marcus shot her a look that killed her objection before it could form, the same look he used in boardrooms when someone questioned his decisions. "My table, please, Michelle. And we'll need children's menus." They were seated at his usual corner table, the one with the view of the kitchen where he liked to watch the organized chaos of creation. The older child, a boy of about 8 with his mother's dark eyes and a gravity that didn't belong on a child's face, stared at the white tablecloth like it might vanish if he blinked. His fingers hovered above it, not quite touching, as if he was afraid of leaving marks. The little girl pressed against her mother, overwhelmed by the crystal glasses and silver cutlery that reflected the candlelight like tiny stars. Marcus ordered generously, his voice steady and warm as he asked for soups, French onion and butternut squash, pasta with cream sauce, warm bread with butter, and hot chocolate for the children with extra whipped cream. He watched the server's eyebrows rise at the order but didn't care. The mother tried to protest, but Marcus waved her concern away. "Please," he said. "Let me do this." As they waited for the food, the mother introduced herself as Sarah. Her voice was quiet but steady, carrying the determination of someone who refused to be broken. She'd been a nurse before her husband died in a car accident 18 months ago, she explained. She'd been a good nurse too, loved her patients, loved helping people heal. But the medical bills from the accident had consumed their savings faster than she could comprehend. Then came the eviction when she couldn't pay rent. Then the job loss because she had no stable address, no childcare, no way to maintain the schedule. Then the shelter system, which was overcrowded and frightening, where her son had been bullied and her daughter had stopped sleeping. Her voice cracked as she explained the cascade of disasters, each one leading inevitably to the next, but she held her head high. She didn't beg or plead. She just told her story with the quiet dignity of someone who'd done nothing wrong but was being punished anyway. The children ate slowly at first, carefully, as if they were afraid the food might be taken away. Then hungrily, savoring each bite with an intensity that made Marcus's throat tight. He watched the little girl's face transform with each spoonful of soup, each piece of warm bread, each sip of hot chocolate. Her eyes grew brighter. Color returned to her cheeks. When the chocolate cake arrived, he'd ordered it without asking, unable to resist. She gasped with pure, uncomplicated joy. When was the last time he'd seen such genuine happiness? His daughter had everything, the latest phone, designer clothes, a room full of toys she never touched, and smiled at nothing. This child had nothing and glowed with gratitude over a slice of cake. As the meal wound down, Marcus excused himself, catching the manager's attention with a subtle gesture. They stepped away to a quiet corner near the bar, where the low lighting created a pocket of privacy. Marcus pulled out his wallet, extracting his Black American Express card along with a substantial fold of cash he always kept for emergencies, though he'd never imagined this kind of emergency. "The family at my table," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion he didn't bother hiding. "I need you to do something for me. There's a family shelter 2 blocks north on Amsterdam Avenue. Make sure they get there safely tonight in a cab, a warm cab with a driver you trust. And give Sarah this." He handed over an envelope he'd grabbed from the hostess stand, stuffing it with $5,000 in $100 bills. His hands moved automatically, counting out the money while his mind spun with the strangeness of the moment. He added his business card on top, the one with his direct line that he gave to almost nobody. "Tell her I have a position open in my company's healthcare division. Tell her it's real, not charity. We actually need someone with her background and experience. Have her call Monday morning and ask for me directly." The manager, Pierre, a dignified man who'd seen everything in 30 years of fine dining, looked at Marcus with something approaching wonder. "Of course, Mr. Chen. Right away." He paused, then added softly, "That's very kind of you, sir." Marcus shook his head. "It's not kindness. It's barely enough." But even as he said it, he felt something shifting inside him, like tectonic plates moving after years of being locked in place. Something was cracking open in his chest, and he wasn't sure if it hurt or healed. When he returned to the table, Sarah was crying quietly, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her children close. The boy was holding her hand, his young face solemn and protective. But it was the little girl who moved, who changed everything. She climbed down from her chair with careful determination, her small feet finding the floor, and walked directly to Marcus. Her steps were slow and purposeful, like she was approaching something sacred. She reached into her enormous coat pocket and pulled something out, holding it reverently in both hands. Then she placed it on the table in front of him with the solemnity of someone presenting a royal gift. It was a small, battered stuffed elephant, grey fabric worn thin from years of constant clutching and loving. One black button eye was missing, replaced by a crooked brown button that didn't match, sewn on with uneven stitches in red thread. The trunk drooped to one side. Stuffing poked through a seam near the tail. But it was clean, meticulously clean, as if someone had washed it by hand over and over, making sure it stayed pure despite their circumstances. The child looked up at Marcus with enormous brown eyes that held an ancient wisdom, the kind that only comes from suffering and surviving. He was my daddy's, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the restaurant's ambient noise. Daddy gave him to me before the angels took him to heaven. Mommy says Daddy watches over us from up there, and the elephant helps us remember. He keeps the sad away when nighttime comes and everything feels scary. She paused, studying Marcus's face with an intensity that made him feel transparent, like she could see straight through his expensive suit to the hollow place inside. You look sad like Mommy looks sometimes when she thinks we're sleeping. Your eyes are the same. You can keep him so the sad goes away. Daddy would want to help you too. Marcus's breath caught in his throat, sharp and painful like he'd inhaled broken glass. His hands trembled violently as he picked up the tiny elephant, feeling the worn fabric soft against his palms, the weight of it so light but somehow crushing. This child, who owned nothing but the clothes on her back and this one precious treasure, was giving him her most valuable possession, her last connection to her father, because she saw his pain. Because in her pure, uncorrupted wisdom, she recognized suffering and responded with love instead of fear. The walls he'd built around his heart for 3 years, the careful barriers he'd constructed brick by brick to keep himself functional and focused and productive, cracked apart like an egg struck from the inside. He felt everything at once, the loneliness, the regret, the years of missed moments with his daughter, the way he'd traded love for achievement and found himself bankrupt in the only currency that mattered. He knelt down to the little girl's level, tears streaming freely down his face, the first he'd cried since his wife had walked out, taking Emma with her and leaving him in that enormous penthouse that felt like a mausoleum. "Sweetheart," Marcus managed, his voice breaking into pieces that he didn't bother trying to hold together. "This is the most valuable thing anyone's ever given me. In my whole life, no one has given me anything that matters this much. But he belongs with you. He's your daddy's love made real, and you need that. How about he stays with me tonight, just for tonight, and then you visit him sometimes? You can come see him whenever you want, and we'll make sure he's taking good care of me. Is that okay?" The little girl's face transformed, lit from within like someone had turned on a light behind her eyes. Joy radiated from her so powerfully that Marcus felt warmed by it. She nodded eagerly, bouncing on her toes. "Really? I can visit? You promise?" "I promise," Marcus said, and meant it with every cell in his body. "Cross my heart." Sarah was staring at him with an expression of complete disbelief, tears flowing unchecked down her face. Her hands covered her mouth. "Sir, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? People don't. Nobody just helps like this. What do you want from us?" Marcus looked at the elephant in his hands, running his thumb over the mismatched button eye, then at this small family that had nothing but still offered everything without hesitation. "Because you just reminded me what I've forgotten," he said, his voice steadying as truth filled it. "I spent years chasing success, thinking if I built something big enough, if I made enough money, if I impressed enough people, I'd matter. I'd be worth something. I lost my family doing it. I thought I was providing for them, but I was just hiding. Hiding from intimacy, from vulnerability, from the terrifying work of actually being present." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, not caring that people at nearby tables were watching. "Your daughter gave me her treasure because she saw I was empty. I've been empty for so long, I forgot what full felt like. I forgot what it means to connect with another human being without an agenda or a contract or an expectation of return on investment." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and scrolled to a number he'd called 1,000 times but never with his heart open like this. He pressed dial. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Jennifer? It's Marcus. I know it's late. I know I have no right to call like this. But is Emma still awake? Can I talk to her? Please. It's important. It's actually important this time." A pause, surprise evident in his ex-wife's voice even through the phone's tiny speaker. Then his daughter's voice, uncertain and guarded, wrapped in the defensive armor of a child who'd been disappointed too many times. "Dad. Baby girl, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for every missed dinner, every broken promise, every time work came first and you came second or third or not at all." His voice cracked wide open, spilling everything he'd held back for years. "I know I can't fix it all tonight. I know sorry isn't enough after 3 years of absence. But I want to try. I want to actually try this time, not just say the words. Can we have breakfast tomorrow? Just us. I'll cancel everything. The board meeting, the calls with Tokyo, all of it. None of it matters as much as you do. Nothing has ever mattered as much as you." He drew a shaky breath. "I miss you so much, Emma. I miss knowing what makes you laugh. I miss being your dad instead of just someone who pays the bills." His daughter's sob came through the phone, raw and real, the sound of years of hurt breaking open. "Really? You mean it this time? You're not going to cancel again?" "I promise. I swear on everything I have, everything I am. I love you, Emma. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be the father you deserve, starting right now." When he hung up, Sarah was crying again, but smiling through her tears like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. The manager returned with confirmation. A shelter had beds for them tonight, and better yet, a transitional housing program had an opening. They could stay there for up to 6 months while Sarah got back on her feet. Sarah clutched the envelope Marcus had given her, her hands trembling as she felt the weight of it, understanding flooding her face. "I'll pay you back. Every single cent. I promise. I don't know how long it'll take, but I will." "Use it to rebuild," Marcus said firmly. "And call Monday about that job. It's real. We need you."